John Jones to me is the most accomplished fighter we've ever seen. Like the things accumulate over time. No one is as flawless as Khabib Nurmagomedov. Not even close.
I think that is the argument, right? Like, who is the GOAT? I think if you look at John Jones's early career, right? John Jones wins the title in 2011, and from then on has fought more fights as championship fights than he has other fights. So he's the most accomplished for sure. Wins the title, the earliest, youngest guy to ever win the title in the UFC. Beats Mauricio Shogun Rua, who's a legend. And then the way he dominates all these other fighters, up until you get to Alexander Gustafsson, you could make the argument that he had a similar career. You could make the argument, like if you look at what he did, John didn't lose any rounds. John was smashing people. You look what he did to Rashad Evans. Look what he did to Rampage Jackson. Look what he did to Lyoto Machida. Look what he did to everybody. Everybody he fought up until the Gustafsson fight. But the Gustafsson fight, then you have to say, well, how much slack do you give him for admittedly not training? Because it was a really close fight. He pulls it out in the championship round, even though he's out of shape, even though you talk to Greg Jackson, he didn't train for that fight. Didn't fucking train. Like, barely worked out, but definitely didn't go through a training camp. Still managed to beat one of the best guys in the division after getting taken down for the first time in his career. Then goes on a tear, right? Look at the way he beat Daniel Cormier in the first fight. Took him down. Like, who the fuck takes Daniel Cormier down, right? And then you look at him in the second fight. Even though it was ruled a no contest, we know what the fuck happened. He head kicked him and stopped him. You know, it was spectacular. You look at what John has done, then you have to take into account the things that didn't go that well. And we haven't seen those from Khabib yet. You have to take into account the fight like Thiago Santos, right? That fucker goes to a split decision. You're like, whoa, Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes thought he won the fight.
Right.
You know, real close fight. So those fights haven't happened with Khabib yet. And we don't know if they ever could. We don't know, right? Like right now, would you see flawless victory after flawless victory? You can maybe make the argument that Khabib lost 2 rounds his entire career. Maybe the second round against Justin, or
first round rather.
Maybe first round rather against Justin, and maybe the third round with Conor.
That's right.
That's it. Right. And either one of those didn't get cut, didn't get dropped, didn't get hurt.
Right. To never get cut and to never get dropped, I don't think folks understand what that means.
Crazy.
In a sport filled with, it's not a scientific measurement per se, right? Who gets cut the most or something, but in a sport built on unpredictability, on violence. St. Pierre went to wrestling to get away from all of that in large part, and then to never experience that is like, it is shocking beyond description.
Shocking.
I don't know how to explain that to folks. It's but to your point, the thing about Khabib where he falls short is that it's just an inevitability. Like, your run through 29 fights is the best run I've seen through 29 fights ever. But and John's not my best friend or anything, but I just don't. That is the best total resume I've ever seen.
John is the best resume.
It's not. I mean, I know he was getting all salty on Twitter, being like, these fucking Khabib fans. It's like, dude,
he shouldn't do that.
Oh, well, he shouldn't do it. But here's my point to John. It's like, dude, put the keyboard down for just a second. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go to heavyweight, and you're going to probably win. I mean, I don't know if that's a guarantee, but let's assume that you do. All of the conversation, everything that happens right now is just recency bias. And Khabib retired, and his father died, and it was this incredibly sad and inspiring moment. Let the fucking guy have his moment, because when you have your moment, all of the worm is going to turn.
Yeah.
And then everyone's going to be like, John's the fucking greatest. He's going to get his. Just not today at this moment.
Recency bias, that's real. Recent bias that's a real thing. Like, we just watched Khabib, and then the fact that Khabib did supposedly retire. Come on, son. I know you want some more.
Yeah, I know. I haven't eaten much, so my head is spinning a little bit.
That's all right.
Everyone asks me, like, when I go on, it's like, are you going to smoke weed? I'm like, there's no chance I'm smoking Joe Rogan's fucking super weed.
There's no chance I'm smoking it right now.
Salud.
I haven't done anything in a month. I had a couple glasses of wine last night, and I was like, woo.
Yeah, I'm feeling it a little bit. Gotta be careful.
The John Jones situation is also, it's a contrast in personalities, right? Khabib, who's this really religious, very moral, ethical person who doesn't drink, he doesn't party, he doesn't do anything, he just trains. He's always in phenomenal shape. He takes every fight incredibly serious. He's never been out of shape. He's never been fat. He's missed weight a couple of times earlier in his career, but he got that dialed in. He's just so dedicated. Whereas John is a wild man. He's just wild.
I mean, you talk about not training for the Gustafsson fight. Buddy, That ain't the only fight he didn't train for.
How about what he said to Cormier? I did coke and I still beat you.
I beat you after a weekend of cocaine.
And I'm like, I don't think he's lying. I mean, the stories I've heard, I don't want to repeat them because I cannot verify them.
No.
But I've heard stories like, if y'all think that was the one fight, he just like, oh, I'm going to pump the brakes this time. No, bitch. I mean, here's the other part about it. It's like, who's a guy, for example, who maintained dominance through the game and took, significant amounts of time off in boxing? Floyd Mayweather would be a great example of that.
Yeah.
But Floyd has been training as a family affair from adolescence, right? For the long part of his life. And he is so gifted that he can take time off, and the game is so developed that people aren't going to make warp speed development in his absence. And so they got a little bit better every time he took a little bit of time off, like the Maidana first fight with the corkscrew punch. That was a little bit of a wild card there. But in general, he was able to maintain that dominance. In MMA, the game changes rapidly. Super fast, because people are still discovering best practices. In 2 years, people will not be doing the same kinds of things to the same degree they do now. The calf kick and its explosion is sort of an obvious example of that. John was doing things like not training between camps. I mean, that's something only elite boxers do because they've been doing this since they were 5-6 years old, and they can take the time to not necessarily do that. Whereas most MMA fighters are like, I'm a everyday martial artist. I just ramp it up. He would do nothing and then something and still go out there and beat world fucking champions in what at the time was the UFC's marquee division. That is out of this fucking world bonkers. I'm going to beat you as like a part-time guy?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You just couldn't wrap your head around it.
I wonder if maybe there's some benefit to, because it's not like he got totally out of shape, but I wonder if there's some benefit to that, and that he's not getting beat up. He's not getting his joints wrecked, and there's
Probably.